Oh my gosh. So I am the youngest of four children. There are three girls and my poor oldest brother who has still absolutely no idea anything about horses, even though all of his sisters were into it. So I was basically bored and my sisters were already into horses. So I think I was sort of genetically obligated
Mm-hmm.
to be a crazy horse girl and it worked well. So for my fifth birthday, I'm from Florida. I was born in Florida. And for my fifth birthday, my parents had like a big elaborate trip planned to Disney World. They thought I was going to be so excited about it. But at the barn that my sisters rode at, you had to be five to have your first like official riding lesson. So we went to Disney World, and the entire time, like all I talked about was when I got home, I got my riding lesson. And the Disney trip probably cost like thousands of dollars for us to go there. And my riding lesson back in like 1997 cost probably like $40.
Oh
The
my
Disney
gosh.
trip was a waste of money.
Aw,
So
that's
yeah,
really.
I've been a crazy horse girl always.
And what discipline do you guys ride?
So I do jumpers now. I grew up, a kind of crazy story, but I grew up in South Florida. And then when I was turning 7, we actually moved out to Montana. So I
Wow.
rode like kind of hunter jumper when we lived in Florida. And then we went
Mm-hmm.
out to Montana and did a little bit of everything. Like my parents bought my sisters like 3-year-old, unbroke horses so that they could grow up together. My
Oh
parents
wow.
had no idea anything about horses either. So that was, kind of a disaster. So we did like a little bit of Western out there and still English, and then came back to Florida. And I rode like quarter horses and paints growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a chunky little quarter horse mare that I pretend to do dressage and jumpers with.
Aw.
Oh, that's so
But yeah,
awesome. So
primarily English always.
you've done all of it then. Do you prefer English over the Western then?
I do. I am like an adrenaline junkie, so the jumping, like
Oh
I
yes.
can't get enough of it. I feel like I need like 12 horses so I can jump every single day, multiple times a day. But actually, like 2 weeks ago, for the first time, I got to sit on a cow horse and like work cows. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing, but the horse is like super, experienced and knew what he was doing. So that was like, I'm not gonna lie, so much fun, and it made me consider selling all of my English tack because like when that horse like locked onto that cow and I'm just like sitting up there like have no idea, just like holding onto the horn. But that was quite a thrill. So I mean that was a lot of fun, and I
So
very
what
much
do
so
they do?
considered.
Like what was the excitement of doing? I've never heard of that either.
So like the goal, they actually use it for a real purpose, like working on a ranch, like and moving the
Yes.
cows. And if you need like, if there's like an injured calf or something, or for branding, and you need to basically like maneuver the cows and get, one maybe separated from the herd, or you need to get them from one pasture to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So the horses like, are basically herding the cow.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's listening and actually knows what they're talking about, they're probably like, this is not at all the case, but this was my brief understanding in like the 2 hours I spent there. Um,
Okay.
so it was really cool. We were in an arena. They didn't like put me on a horse and were like, hey, go, move cows.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they were like, just try and get like one cow separated from the other cow. There was like, I think 4 or 5 cows in the arena. Get one cow over to the other end of the arena. And, you're really like, you should be able to just get the cows. They told me like, you don't want to be chasing the cows because it stresses them out. And then sometimes
Okay.
they won't eat. And, for the most part, these particular cows weren't for meat, but, for the most in situations like this, they would
Mm-hmm.
be. So, you're really supposed to just like be able to like walk and decide exactly where you want your horse to put that cow basically. And, but, I'm just like holding on, like cantering around, moving the cows around the arena. But it was a really cool experience because like my horse, like she like locks onto a jump, and like I feel like she like attacks the jump, and like this
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
horse I was riding was like, he was like locked onto that cow, and he was like, oh, we're getting that cow and we're making him go where we want. So
That's
that was
really
super fun.
interesting. That is very interesting. And my husband and I are watching Yellowstone right now. And
Oh
so
yeah.
we're primarily English writers. I mean, I am, and my family is, but the more I watch it, the more I'm like, this would be really fun to maybe even think
Oh my
about
gosh.
doing something like that. And you're saying this
Mm-hmm.
now, and I'm thinking,
Yes,
Western
you
saddles
have to
and
try
I
it.
do not get along very well. But other than that, I mean, I would perhaps maybe try it at this point again just to see, because it
Oh my
just looks
gosh.
like there's just like you're saying, there's a purpose for it, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
to be well rounded. We really have never had a particular discipline, in the way that we grew up riding Western. And then we moved out to the country and started riding English. Then we did some fox hunting and we did hunter jumper. And we've kind of done the whole thing too. And we really are just horse people that like, we don't know the ins and outs of all of the particulars of things that you have to
Hmm.
do, but we just enjoy horses. And that's just
Yeah.
I think that's just the best thing is to be able to have those, big animals
Mhm.
around you.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And yeah, being able to do it all, I think I'm gonna try and take my little spicy jumper bear down there and let her meet the cows and see see how that goes. I will absolutely not be on her back for when she first meets them because she has never most certainly been that close to cows.
Yeah.
It will make for good video footage either way. Either, I mean, she's a rescue, and so she's probably a quarter horse mix of something, and
Hmm.
she has some really good sliding stop moves. I know because she's done it at jumps
Oh,
before.
wow.
So she might be a cow horse bred, and she might just love it as much as I did, and we'll do a little bit of everything.
Wouldn't
But
that
I
be
think it's,
fun to have it all around?
yeah, it's exactly, like I don't have any major like showing goals. Like I'm never, chasing points or money or anything. Like
Yes.
I just want to have fun with the horses, and
Hmm.
just being around them is what it's all about. So
Yeah.
whatever you're having fun doing.
And so you work with the equestrian field, which is awesome. We do too. And it's just a incredible experience to be able to,
Hmm.
the things that you do love to be able to work in it. And so you didn't start out working in the equestrian field. Is that right?
No, so I actually like, I've always been a crazy horse girl. And so, just like a lot of crazy horse girls, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to be a large animal vet and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to spend all of my days around horses and it's going to be magical and like it's all just going to be fun and exciting, like not what being a vet actually is. So I actually went to undergrad and I did biology basically with like a focus on pre-vet. And I started working as a vet tech, small animal vet tech, and basically all of it's, I mean, it's really sad, but basically all of the vets that I worked with were like, don't be a vet.
Oh,
And just,
wow.
being in the vet's office all the time, it made me realize how much like that was not the job for me, and
Mm-hmm.
how it's not playing with puppies and kittens and foals all day. There's so
Yeah.
much to being a vet, and it's so, emotionally draining. And I realized that was absolutely not the career for me. So I kind of had no idea what I was going to do. I moved up to Charlotte from South Florida, and I worked in a vet's office still and really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. I started being a working student for a little while, and I thought maybe, I wanted to be a trainer because I knew I just had to be around horses. And it just never like felt like a right fit. Just being a trainer wasn't for me. And then I
Mm-hmm.
started working like a super horrible corporate job, like at an insurance agency essentially, and just hated it. I sat in like a gray cubicle 40 hours a week and just
Mm-hmm.
went home and felt completely miserable. Like
Mm.
I wanted to be outside, I wanted to be with the horses. And so one day, like I have my Apple Watch on and I look down at my watch and like I'm fairly athletic and I work out all the time and I'm very, very healthy. And my heart rate was like 200. And I'm
Oh,
just like
wow.
sitting in my cubicle, like looking at Excel spreadsheets. And I'm like, oh my God, like this couldn't be good. And I just had like this overwhelming feeling that I had to quit that job. And so like I texted my husband, I was like, I think I'm going to quit today. Like, I think I'm going to give my 2 weeks notice. Like,
Oh,
no idea what I
my.
was going to do, no real plan. Like this wasn't like a premeditated thing. I was just like, I think I'm gonna die in here if I don't give my 2 weeks notice today. So I went into my boss's office right then and I was like, hey, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. Like there's literally nothing you guys can do to get me to stay. Like this just, I know this isn't for me and life is
Mm-hmm.
way too short to spend it here.
Wow.
So I had a like $400 camera at the time and I didn't even have a computer. I had an iPad and absolutely zero idea what I was doing. But I was like, well, I don't have a job now and I have free time. So I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to take pictures of horses when I can. So basically, like, texted all of my horse friends and was like, hey, I want to come take pictures of your horses. And I'm like 3.5 years later, and now I get to like travel a ton and be a full time equine
That's so cool.
photographer, and it just feels like a dream. Like I get to spend my days with horses and I just absolutely love photography and I'm getting into a lot of videography now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I ended up to finally feel like I'm like in the right place as a crazy horse girl.
So how did that start for you? Was that I mean, I know you just said, can I, take some pictures of, you and my friends, and then how did that transition to actually getting paid for that and not one question I do have, because I don't think I've ever asked this before, like how do you handle that when you have really good friends or things like that you're kind of like, okay, now I really do have to charge even for the people that
Mm-hmm.
are my friends and things like that. How does that happen?
So it basically, I started taking pictures and editing on my iPad with like a free app. And I was absolutely terrible, and everyone was still being so nice and telling me that the pictures were
Oh.
great.
Aw.
And so I just, we have like a couple like local horse Facebook groups. So I would just post like pictures that I had taken of friends' horses and was like, hey, I'm trying to build my portfolio. And basically, like, hey, I'll come do pictures of your horse for free. And then I
Mhm.
started charging like $50 and $100. And I just kind of like built my way up. And as
Mhm.
I could afford better camera equipment and a computer, I just sort of, like gradually, as I learned and as I got paid more, I was able to buy better equipment.
Yeah.
And it's just been, a constant like learning process. And honestly, like the photography part of it most definitely feels like the easy part now. It's all of the, like marketing and client management and all of that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. And like
Mhm.
now that I'm going to be traveling a lot more, like planning out all my travel and schedule and everything. But as far as like friends and horses go, there is like my close group of friends who I would, and family who I would
Sure.
just never charge. Like, the wonderful thing about this job is like it is one of those things. I mean, I have to get paid to do it because it is my, full-time job, and I do need to
Yes.
make money considering horses are an expensive hobby. But, no matter what, like I absolutely love doing it, whether I get paid or not.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
getting to do stuff for family and friends. And I just think, photos are so important, and
Mhm.
people don't realize it until, sometimes like I did a photo shoot a few weeks ago for a horse who was being, unfortunately, he was having to be put down. He was
Oh
very
my.
old and had lived a
Mhm.
great life, but I did kind of like a last minute, like the day before he was going to be euthanized photo
Aw.
shoot. And it just like feels like such a, like a responsibility, and it feels so important. Like that's, capturing like his last day on earth, and
Mhm.
his owner having those photos forever, because our animals, like they don't live as long as, I'm going to start crying. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I promise I won't. But
I never
they
would have
don't
thought
live.
of that. Like to do a photo shoot like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I've done quite a few of those, and it's really, it's really special to get to capture that and just
Mhm.
have those, be able to give people those memories that they can just have forever, even after,
yeah.
our precious horses are gone.
Yes. Wow. Boy, you got me like in a moment there because we
I
had
know,
a
I'm sorry.
it's okay. I mean, we had a very, very, we've had lots of horses come
Yeah.
and go. And it, when you're growing up and you're learning about those things when you're little, it helps you to, process through. But we just had one, and they are all special, but we had one really, really special
Mhm.
Percheron that, when he passed away, it was really hard. And
Mm,
now you're saying that, and I'm thinking that is very smart. So that's something that, I mean, we could think about doing something like that, even when they're just happy and they're in their,
Mhm.
golden years right now. We've got a couple of
yeah,
those that we should probably think about doing photo shoots with. But
yeah,
one thing I will
absolutely.
say, looking at your photography and getting the people looking just right and the
Mhm.
horses looking just right, I have no idea of how you are like magic. It is incredible, and everybody like the angles and everything of the how the people look. I think it would be very hard to get the right angle on the person
Mhm.
and the horse at the same time.
And making sure that their ears are forward, and there's a
Oh,
lot
well,
to it.
I have a few girls who assist me at photo shoots, and like shout out to Katie and Lindsay because they're both amazing. And without them, like, I mean, they're both like, they both are super like OCD, and like if a, a foot is slightly out of place and not square, they're like running over before I can even say anything. And like, they're getting the ears forward and stuff. So it is definitely, I will say it's not a one man job. I used to try and go to photo shoots and not have an assistant, and
Mhm.
it's just way too much to try and be like focusing on, getting the person like not only pose right, but having them feeling confident and like
Yes.
happy in front of the camera. Because like you can pose somebody all day, but if they aren't like feeling, good inside, like that's
Mhm.
gonna show through. So trying to get, the horse standing and their ears forward, and, sometimes I want them looking to the left, sometimes I want them looking to the right, I want them wrapping their head around the person. So having an assistant is completely essential, and I cannot go without. So I can't take all the credit for the perfectly posed horses and the ears forward and all of that.
No, but you do have to have a vision of what you're looking for. And
Mhm.
in a short 3 years, you have, I mean, really accomplished a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate that. It
And
is,
you're,
I think it's just like a calling. Like I just, it doesn't
yes.
feel like even just saying that, I'm like, no, it's actually really easy. Like as far as getting people like in the flow and I'm like, no, it's actually not hard at all. It just feels like very natural. But I think that this is just like, part of my purpose here. So
Yeah,
but
you are
thank you
in
for
your
noticing.
groove and in your element. That's really
Thank you.
cool. And your
That's
energy
so sweet.
level, I mean, would have to calm people down or to, get them. I mean, you sound like you're so easy to talk to. They can probably just start moving with what you're saying, and I think that helps too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to use like a lot of prompts and give people like my favorite is like the little girls and their ponies, and I'll say like just the absolutely most ridiculous things to them, and just capturing that like real emotion. Like one of
Mhm.
my favorite prompts to use is absolutely ridiculous, but it even makes me laugh. Like I'll be like, okay, like you see that tree over there? Now imagine there's a squirrel and he's sitting in that tree and he is covering himself in peanut butter. And it's just like the most like they're not expecting that at all. And like the little girls just like, crack up. And then I get the cutest moments of them like hysterically
Wow,
laughing with their pony. So I
sweet.
think it's just, it's so much about being able to like connect with people and get
Yeah.
them to forget that I have the camera there, because
Yeah.
I've met very few people who are like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love being in front of the camera, especially like when my horse is like dancing around me and like
Right.
rearing up and swishing at the flies. I love this. So, just being able to basically get them to forget that I have the camera there is like my goal in every session.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, Cassidy, you have such a good attitude about everything, and you're so bubbly and happy. And you
Thank you.
recently had an experience that I personally would not be very happy about, but you handled it very well. So, do you want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yes. So I had a major social media issue I think it's been about a month and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell if it feels like it all happened yesterday, or if it was like 5 years ago, or if I never had those social media accounts altogether. But, it was just like an ordinary Thursday afternoon, and I go to log into my phone to post on Instagram, and it says my account's been disabled. And I had like 15.3 thousand followers on one of my
Mm-hmm.
Instagram accounts, and I had like a few backup accounts, and it was also connected to like my personal Facebook page, so that, for like the Facebook ads account or whatever. So I go to log in and it says like, your account's been disabled. I'm like, that's not right. Like I post pictures of, girls with their horses. I'm definitely
Yeah.
not doing anything inappropriate on Instagram. So I'm like, whatever, maybe Instagram's just having an issue. So I like put my phone down for a few minutes and figuring it's a glitch or whatever, because I've never, I've been on Instagram for years and never had any
Mm-hmm.
problems. And then I like go back a few minutes later and I'm having the same thing. And I'm like, okay, that's not good. So I try logging into another account, same thing. Try logging in from my computer, same thing. Tried logging into my Facebook. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like texting my best friend. I'm like, hey, like, can you see my Instagram account right now? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, just breathe, Cassie. It's gonna be okay. And so Instagram disabled all of my Instagram accounts and my personal Facebook page that I've had since I was like 16 years old. I still have no idea why. It says because I violated community guidelines, which I do not believe that I have violated anything. Like I literally posted, pictures I've taken of girls
Mm-hmm.
and their horses and
Mm-hmm.
myself with my horse. So I don't know if it was, a glitch in their system or if I was hacked or reported. I really have no idea. And I'm not going to act like I just was like, oh, it'll all be fine. It's no big deal, because there were a lot of tears. Like my poor
Aw.
husband that weekend, because, like it's one thing like having an Instagram account, like, yeah, it's cool to be like Instagram famous or whatever, and like get free products. But that was how I mean, Instagram was what generated like 90% of my
Right.
clients, and
Yes.
where like all my website traffic was coming from, how I was growing my email list. So that was like a week, like the weekend that it happened was just like full panic. And I was like, maybe this is like a sign that I'm not supposed to be doing this. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was just very strange that all of my accounts, like even my backup accounts, got taken, and my Facebook page. So I had a real meltdown about it. I'm not gonna act like I had a great attitude right from the start. And I really considered going back and getting a corporate job, because I was like, man, I have spent like years growing this Instagram account and growing my
Mm-hmm.
Facebook so that I could travel and I can take pictures of horses all over and, have clients so that my business is successful. And I was like, no, you know what? I don't care if they take everything away from me. Like, this is exactly what I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing this. So I still like my accounts, I know, are like, I know they still exist, because it's still letting me like, I mean, Instagram customer service is an absolute joke. And me having like 15,000 followers
Yeah.
is nothing to them. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like they really care about, my one account. And I mean, I can't blame them. I don't pay them
Right.
anything to be on there. So I'm not mad at Instagram. I'm sure it's like a glitch in, their system. Um, so I have started new accounts, and I do try and, I fill out all their forms and everything to try
Mm-hmm.
and get my accounts reactivated, but they don't like, there's no information. They don't tell you anything. They're not like, hey, we're working on this. Like, you
Yeah,
get
nothing.
nothing. From some of the girls that I've talked to who have had similar situations, like they, one person I heard filled out the forms for like 8 months, which I don't know if I'm going to be that committed to it or not. I think I would
Mm-hmm.
just give up at a point. And then one day she could just log back into her account,
Hmm.
but she didn't get any like email or anything. So
Interesting.
long story short, those Instagram accounts are gone for the time being.
Wow.
And I am gladly growing a new account. And it honestly hasn't really impacted my business that much. I thought it was going to, but I am still booking tons of shoots. And it has, kind of forced me to learn new ways to market myself and not be so dependent on social media, which we truly don't have any control over.
Right.
Right.
Very, very true. And in a year of, coming out of the COVID, restrictions that we had
Mm-hmm.
and all of that, I mean, that piled on top of what you'd already been through, I'm sure was just, did you have to stop doing photo shoots during COVID, or were you still able to get through because you had like so much distance between people and,
Yeah, at the beginning. So like last year, like March, when it like really hit hard, a lot of barns were even like closed in the area. So
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
like spring and fall are my like really busy times when
Mm-hmm.
I'm like booked solid. So like last spring, it definitely impacted it because fortunately, like my barn was still allowing people to go out. We were just kind of spaced out. But
Mm-hmm.
there were tons of barns in the area where like, people couldn't even go out and see their own horses, let alone having,
Hmm.
a photographer out. So it definitely, impacted the spring, but then it picked up so much in the fall. It was just absolutely crazy and busy. So it kind of, made up for the
Mm-hmm.
lost time.
Well, that was good. We did with our business too. Went down to a just a real small staff and
Hmm.
tried to do. I mean, it was only 4 or 5 people here, which is not normal for us. And so we tried to get through it too. And then we reopened again, and we've just kept the social distancing up, and we wear masks when we're still through the office, and we're still in that phase. But
Mm-hmm.
it did take a toll. I just can't imagine having that on top of what you've already been through to uh, have to think about how to advertise. I mean, even we as a company think about how to advertise and how to
Mm-hmm.
get the word out besides just our social media platforms too.
Hmm.
And you know, I would think that would be a big. I mean, we're growing ours too. I mean, ours is pretty small. We're growing ours, but we know that's important. But at the same time, our foundation is our website.
Yeah.
And so, do
Yeah.
you have a website too? Is that something that you would
Yeah.
recommend having?
Oh, absolutely. Like, and honestly, one thing that I had done that was pretty smart was like I had been growing an email list. I
Yep.
always heard like you can't rely on social media,
Yep.
like anything can happen, and everybody's like, that's never going to happen to me.
Right.
That's no big deal. So I did. I have a small email list of people. But the thing that has been, something that I didn't really think about that much before that I'm really like leaning into now is just like you cannot like there is just so much value in previous clients who,
Mm-hmm.
if you've done everything for them and just given them such an amazing experience, like there is nothing better for advertising than a really happy customer
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
hey, this person
Absolutely.
did this for me and I loved it. Like that has done, really leaning into like past clients and just, like loving on them more and just, really appreciating them in a way that I should have been all along. And maybe I was too caught up in, doing all the social media stuff to even realize it, but just like truly feeling grateful for the people you've already been able to work with
Mm-hmm.
and telling them that, like
Yeah.
not just being like, oh, I did one photo shoot for you and I'm done. Like sending them, gifts or pictures or, coupons to print pictures. Like it's just, I think it's so important to really lean into the people who, you've already worked with and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that client experience was amazing so they want to recommend you to people.
And I feel like that's where the customer service aspect like comes in because people want that relationship. So as much as things are heading towards a digital platform, that personal experience and I feel like it just is so enhanced and it's still very important. So
Oh, absolutely. I think especially now because so many of the things that maybe we used to have, personal connections with people in, like it's also like automated and digital now. So I
mm-hmm.
think, now more than ever, especially like I think people, you know, we get sick of other human beings. Like that sounds
Yeah.
horrible, but when you're constantly, bombarded with other people, but I think like COVID and people having to quarantine and really being away from people made them actually miss like
Yes.
real,
Yes.
human
Yeah.
interaction. So I think it's like now is the time, like if you have a business, just to really like go hard on like not just focusing on like building a social media account and growing your email list, but
Mhm.
like, hey, like what can I do for these wonderful people who already like stood
Mhm.
up and said like, yes, I want to work with you. I just think that's something I wasn't, putting enough emphasis on before, and it's just been a game changer. I thought, going from 15,000 followers on Instagram to 0 overnight, I was like, well, nobody's gonna book me now. I look like I'm just starting out.
Aw.
And it was not the case at all. And I
Mhm.
just think, you put so much, you get wrapped up in social media. And I think so
Mhm.
much of it can be like an ego thing, and just, refocusing on
Yeah.
the important thing, which at the end of the day, for a business, like the important thing is making sure your customers are happy. And I think that's just, you can't undervalue that.
Couldn't agree more. So, what did you think when you got your first trip away that you like somebody had booked you that you had to go like far
And
away?
travel for.
Yep. And were
Yeah.
you shocked? Were you like, oh my goodness, now I'm like really getting out there?
No, so I'm from Florida, and like when I went down to Florida for photo shoots for the first time, like I got to stay with my parents who
Oh,
lived
nice.
down there at the time still. So I mean it didn't feel like, it probably would have felt crazier and more exciting if it wasn't like, oh, like going every time I go back to Florida, it just feels like I'm going home. Like I have
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
family down there still and friends that live there. So it didn't feel like, anything crazy. But I am like, I've mostly just gone like south, but this year I am going up north. Like I have multiple shoots in Pennsylvania and New York booked for this summer. So that feels a little bit more exciting to go to places that I haven't really been since I was like a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
But going to Florida has always just felt like
Hmm.
my second
Going
home. But
home. Yeah.
yeah,
So
it is. I mean, it's exciting. It's definitely an honor that people would be willing to have me, go hundreds of miles to go and take pictures of them and their horse.
yeah. So what has been your most favorite shoot that you've done so far?
Oh my goodness. They are like, there's just so many amazing, like I really love actually doing like brand and product shoots, which is something that I didn't necessarily
Hmm.
think that I would love. But I just, one of the wonderful things about Instagram is like I've met so many people that have brands, and just, knowing these people who have poured their heart and soul and their wallets into creating these products, and being able to,
Mhm.
take pictures for them that like really stand out on social media and help them grow their brand. Like that's just something that's always felt like really special to me. And I love getting to support other, women and other equestrian entrepreneurs. So
Mm-hmm.
I really love branding work. And then, oh my goodness, I've had just so many amazing photo shoots. I can just picture like little moments of so many wonderful photo shoots. There's always that moment where like the girl is not paying attention, like kind of, I'm just like, oh, I'm just checking and making, sure I got the shot I wanted. And she'll start like petting her horse and loving on her horse. And I'm like, oh, this is what I really want to be shooting. So I think it's more about like the moments in each shoot than like
Yeah.
one shoot in particular.
Awesome.
Okay, well, we will be taking a short break, and when we come back, we will enter our next segment, Canter Banter.
This podcast is brought to you by Ramm Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. Ramm is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984. Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com. We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often.
So, my whole barn was going to a horse show, and my friend Lindsay and I, we always like trailer our horses together, and we're always the first ones to leave. And we're always like, oh, we're gonna get there early. We get to pick our stalls. Like we're gonna get, we're gonna get everything set up and have everything ready before everyone gets there, so we get our stalls together and like get the best place for tack and everything. So we always leave like 2 hours before everybody else for horse shows, and we always get there last. Like we end up making like 57 pit stops. And like this time we were like, no, like we are getting there first, and we were really committed to it. Like we had gas, we had everything we needed. The trailer we loaded the night before. Our horses like walked right on. We get out and we're like, oh, nobody else is leaving for like at least an hour. We're good. We'll be there super early. But of course, we're leaving for a horse show at like 5:30 in the morning. And I'm like, let's just stop for coffee. Like we'll just take like 5 minutes and we'll stop for coffee. I was like, I'm going to be in a terrible mood if I make this entire drive and at no point I get to have coffee. And by the time we get there and unload everything, like we're not going to feel like leaving to go get coffee. And I'm like, I drink an iced caramel latte every single day. I'm a princess when it comes to coffee. I was like, I need coffee. I'm like, okay, I know there's a Panera close by. Like, we'll stop at Panera. Like just punch it in the GPS and I'm driving. Lindsay's the worst co-pilot ever. So she punches it in the GPS and I'm like, I'm like following the instructions and I didn't look at like which Panera it was. We live in Charlotte. There's a ton of Paneras. And we're driving. And then all of a sudden I see like this, and I have, my horse trailer and like we have like hay piled up in the back of my truck. And I see the signs for like Charlotte Douglas International Airport as we're going into the terminal. And I'm like, oh, Lindsay, what the heck? You GPS'd us to get to the freaking Panera Bread at the airport. So like that airport is already stressful enough. Like there's like 87 signs and there's like ramps to get off everywhere. And I have, 2 horses in the back. And so we're like going through like the drop off, like as if we're just dropping our horses off at the terminal. And like, I'm like squeezing through with my trailer as like all these people are like unloading their suitcases. And I was very angry because not only did I not get my Panera coffee, we had to drive around the airport for like 30 minutes trying to get out because it's like this crazy loop and there's exits everywhere with the horses. And we once again arrived very last to the horse show. We did not get to pick our spot.
That would be so stressful.
I always GPS now. I trust no one when it comes to GPSing.
That's a good one. That's very, very good. I like that. Well, we hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all of your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like to discuss? We'd want to hear from you. You may email us at podcast@ramfence.com or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening.